Hey there, Suzi here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. Now, my co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we also host a mastermind. We started it almost 8 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of women in. So if you're growing your business, but you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or like you constantly have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. We have an amazing time together, and the women in the group are extraordinary. They're great cheerleaders, supporters, advisors, and colleagues for you. And they're also seeing extraordinary results. We see people cracking the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million mark, launching new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in sales. They're doubling their conversion rates, they're growing memberships, they're selling courses, they're growing their personal brands, and they're getting all kinds of media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the mastermind and join the waitlist over at herbusinessmastermind.com. We're going to open the doors soon, so you definitely want to be on the list to get an invitation. So head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com. Content Sales Podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. We are broadcasting live. I'm Suzi Dafnis. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi. I'm doing really well. I'm actually very excited to be here live with you and to be talking about today's topic, which we were just chatting about it. We just shared it in depth with our Marketing Success Masterminders last week, which was such a great meeting. We were just saying how energized we are from that experience, and they are buzzing as a result of getting deeper into this topic. It has already been such a game changer for them, and I really think it's only going to become more so for them. And of course, it's a game changer for all small business owners.
And since last weekend, which was just last week, was only a couple of days ago, I've had people say, I heard you talked about AI at the mastermind. So the timing of this broadcast, I think, is perfect. Everyone's talking about AI, artificial intelligence, but what does it really mean? How do you use it as a business owner? How is it changing the game of content marketing? They're the questions that we're interested in, and likely you are too, which is why we wanted to get this bonus episode out to you ASAP. For the regular listeners of the show, it is being published outside of our regular schedule because we wanted to get it to you right now. And because we are broadcasting live, and I can see there's a number of people here watching, feel free to ask questions at any time. We're going to be checking in on those a little later. Good morning, Christy. Yes, Christy Smith from Virtual Elves is here saying hello, hello, hello. Lovely to have you here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. And, look, I think, Suzi, I'll speak for me, but I think I'm speaking for you too. We don't profess to be AI experts in any way, shape or form. I do have a bit of a giggle, Suzi, at the people out there who are kind of professing they've got AI all figured out. But we have been using AI in a variety of cool ways in our respective projects and businesses. And we've already started developing a few frameworks that are proving really useful that we're sharing in our teams and with our clients and, with the masterminders, and that we're bringing into practice into what we're doing. So we're really sharing like where we're up to in this episode. And you might be using AI right now as well, and likely you've got some really cool ways that you're using it, and we're always keen to hear from you, our listeners, about all the content marketing strategies you're using. So if you have something to add to what we're sharing in today's show, we want to hear from you. So go ahead, find us over on our Facebook page. Just search Content Sales Podcast over on Facebook and let us know. Really, we're all in this learning experience together, and we may just be, one or two steps ahead, or, you might be saying, hey, we already know that. Here's another thing that you can learn. So let's share as much as we can. That rising tide really does lift all boats.
I absolutely agree. And I think this is a time where we can collaborate and pull our ideas. And as it is reasonably new, looking at how different business owners are using it is really going to be helpful. And I have found just by brainstorming with my friends and my peers that I've learning these little hacks and ways to use it better and better. So this is our first AI episode, but it definitely won't be our last, and we'll even tease a little bit to future episodes that we'll be doing. But it's a technology that's here to stay. It's really going to transform the way that we do business, certainly the way that we do our content marketing. This show, of course, is about content. So if you haven't taken the leap into using AI in your business yet, let this episode be an introduction for you and an encouragement for you to dip your toe in the water. And we're going to be giving you some actual real life applications of how we've been using it in our own businesses and, as Michelle said, with our own projects. And so if you are using it, as Michelle said, let us know, add to the conversation here today. Go ahead and ask questions, add to the conversation, and see if you can't pick up a few more tips to make even better use of it than you already have been up until now.
The other thing that we wanted to point out before we kind of dive into a lot of the practical tips we've got to share is that we're also going a tiny bit meta with today's show. And by that, we mean we've actually used AI and will be using AI in a variety of ways to create this episode. So starting with the graphics for today's show, and Suzi and I were kind of deliberate when we thought, if we're going to do an AI episode, let's use AI as much as possible in the creation of the episode. And so we always like to have an image for each show that we use in our social media and on the website and in various places to promote each episode. And the image that we have used to promote this episode was actually created with AI. We also used AI to name this episode, which we'll touch on a little later. And we used AI to help us think about this episode, brainstorm and map out what the content might be. We'll also be using AI in anticipation to create our show notes and the subsequent marketing and copy that we use to promote the show. So we write emails, we write social posts and all of those things. We're going to be using AI to do all of that. So keep your eyes out for that as an example of AI in action.
You're going to hear the initials AI a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, it stands for artificial intelligence, as many of you will already know. But what does it really mean? Just before we dive into that, I do want to say hi to Felicity, who's joining us from Broome, and she's just posted here, hey, Flick. And Sue, already in with a question. Terrific. We will hold that over till a little later in the show. So if you, like Sue, have a question, go ahead and post it and we'll address those a little later on.
That is awesome. Cannot wait. So, what does artificial intelligence really mean? We know AI stands for artificial intelligence, but what the heck is artificial intelligence? Well, I'm not an AI scientist, but I've got a bit of a lay person's definition for us. So artificial intelligence at its kind of core is really designed to mimic human intelligence and behavior. I heard it explained recently that, people think AI is the little Roomba vacuum cleaner that goes around your house. And while it does do a little bit of learning, really it isn't truly what the artificial intelligence experience is all about. Artificial intelligence is able to learn from experience. It's able to make decisions, solve problems, and adapt to the environment. And there are many, many different types of AI technologies. So there's machine learning, there's natural language processing, there's computer vision, which uses AI, there's robotics, all of these different kind of branches of AI that are out there. And really the kind of the buzz that's going on right now, maybe many of you have heard this phrase or this tool, ChatGPT. Maybe you're using ChatGPT. Well, a lot of the tools like ChatGPT, OpenAI Playground, Jasper, WriteSonic, Copy AI, all of these tools that you may be using or have heard about, they're using the branch of AI called natural language processing, and this is abbreviated to NLP. Now, it's not the NLP that some of you may know, neuro-linguistic programming. This is natural language processing. And natural language processing, or NLP technologies, they use algorithms to process and understand natural language, just like the name suggests. And this is where the real breakthrough, I think, has been. It's why this has become such a kind of, it's like at the start of the year, nobody was talking about it. And like within weeks, it was like everybody was talking about it. And it's because we've now got this ability to just, in our own natural language, ask for things and then have that come back to us in a natural language. It's just incredible. So it allows computers to interact with humans in a more natural, conversational way. And it really can feel like a human-like conversation. So I put in my input as the user and just human-like language, and then I get that answer back. And we can actually have a dialogue as this AI does all those things that AI is supposed to do, as it can learn and it can make decisions and it can actually give advice and move forward in a conversation with you. So you can build on what you're saying and getting answers from the AI. So AI is really, to do this, to create this dialogue, it's using this very, very large scale language model, which has been trained on billions of web pages, allowing it to generate responses based on context and historical information. And it's that contextual piece, Suzi, that I just find so mind-blowing. I was showing my mum, and I put in some really philosophical question on the weekend, and it totally knew what we were talking about and gave us a very nuanced answer that just kind of blew both of us away.
I love that. I think that, there's something important that you said there, and this is what's made it so accessible to so many people. A lot of people, the AI tool that they're using is something called Chat GPT. Now, tell us what tools you're using in chat as you're watching, or if you're listening to this later, go ahead to our Facebook page and let us know. But ChatGPT is a tool that had 1 million subscribers within days. And so you can see the acceleration of the interest in this kind of work. Because of this conversation, I don't have to be a programmer. I don't have to have a, tertiary education. I can ask any sort of question in my own language, and the tool is going to search through these millions of pages and come back with some information. The key thing to point out about ChatGPT, Jasper, and some of these other tools is that they are not actively connected with the internet. So they're drawing on information that was input into them a while back. And so a lot of them, I know certainly ChatGPT is based on information prior to 2022. So if you were to ask it who won the Australian Open in 2023, it would tell you that the Australian Open in 2023 hasn't occurred. If you're asking it about the top hits from last summer, it's not going to be accurate. So you just want to remember that this is a stored information. And so when you are drawing, you're not necessarily getting, the latest trends on Twitter or perhaps anything that's very newsy, because the information is not updating in real time, but that's going to change. And tools like Google's Bard, B-A-R-D, and Microsoft's Bing are both rolling out AI-assisted search, and it's not going as well as planned right now. Google's Bard is producing errors, which is what it did during its promotional launch. And some of you may have heard of the disastrous situation where Microsoft's Bing was having really dodgy, for lack of a better word, questionable for sure communications with humans. And so in the very early days, some of these things are being rolled back and being improved, but they're here to stay. And so they are going to get better and better. And so all those developments are happening really, really fast. So this is definitely a space to watch.
Yeah, AI is definitely here to stay. Not a flash in the pan. This is not Clubhouse, people. And just like when the internet first emerged, I'm old enough to, have been already in business when the internet started emerging. I was saying the other day, I remember a friend saying to me, I found this search engine that's a lot more reliable. It's called, what's it called? It's called Google. And I'm like, oh, how do you spell that? Like, I can remember those days, the very, very early days. And, when the internet first emerged, none of us, even the people that were really on the cutting edge of the internet, could have imagined or possibly have conceived of all the amazing applications and opportunities that it's going to bring, that it brought for us. So I imagine that, if people in 1999 could have gotten a time machine and arrived here today, they would just be blown away with the way the world has used and embraced the internet. And it's going to be the exact same with AI. We are really at the cutting edge, the cusp, the beginning of this incredible giant transformation. And we can't even conceive of all the opportunities that are yet going to be available to us. But there are a few really big opportunities that are like lying on the ground right now, big golden nuggets that we can be picking up and using right away in our businesses. And they're particularly suited to small business owners. Maybe we're all a bit stretched. Maybe we're all like, wishing that we could have this magical force come in and write copy for us or help brainstorm ideas or whatever. Guess what? It's here. Yes, you have a magical force, and it's called AI, and the possibilities really are limitless. So right now, and, this is not an exhaustive list, but you can use AI right now for research, to brainstorm ideas, to create content of all kind. I'm going to touch on some of those examples for you today, to translate things, actually translating language, but also to translate something from, say, very kind of technological and formal language to something a bit more casual and colloquial. We can ask it to use source material and translate that source material into something else based on tone or style or language. We can also use it to analyze information. I think this is one of the most exciting places that we're using AI for right now. We can use it to summarize, and there are some incredible tools out there right now. Like, for example, there's a plugin, Suzi, that your partner PJ was telling me about called Fathom, that you can literally plug into Zoom, and at the end of your Zoom call, it will just automatically give you a summary of the Zoom call. Just, you might have spoken for an hour and it gives you a quick little neat summary of all the key points that were said on the call. So summarization is brilliant. You can use it to edit or proof or fix something. We have stories about people uploading code and saying, why isn't my code working? And AI saying, oh, fix this line, there was an error there. Or, hey, here's something I've written, can you go through and rewrite it and correct the grammar, things like that. You can also use it to give you advice or to role play things. So I've heard stories of people using it to help them prepare for job interviews. There really is just no limit to the application. And I think, Suzi, the key really is, while all this sounds good in theory, it's like, well, how can I use it today for something I need in my business? And I know we're both really passionate about that. Like, what can you use it for right now? So we're going to share some practical tips on really ways to dig in a bit of another layer deeper and how to use all of that in this show. And what I'm most excited about is Suzi's going to share how she's been using AI in a very practical way inside her business. So actually sharing some real prompts that she's used, some real business applications that she's had for AI. But first, AI does have some limitations. Not all roses, folks. It does have some limitations that you need to be aware of. And the big thing, and you may have discovered this already if you've been playing with it, it ain't always accurate. Do not believe everything that these tools tell you. OpenAI, which is the parent body that has created the language model that ChatGPT uses, says this about its own tool. They say, ChatGPT sometimes writes plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. And for me, the really key word there is plausible. And Suzi, I know you found this because we've been talking about it, but like sometimes you put something in and that answer sounds really plausible.
But it's not search, that's the difference. It's not a Google search. It's not research. It is, like Michelle said, giving you something that could actually be true, but don't believe it necessarily.
Exactly. So unlike, an AI assistant you might have used like Siri or Alexa, tools like ChatGPT don't use that internet, like Suzi said, to locate answers. And in fact, it's not even really wired this way. And it's really important that you get your head around like what this even is. AI literally constructs a sentence word by word, kind of selecting what should come next based on its training, based on all of these millions and billions of pieces of data that it has at its disposal. In other words, it kind of arrives at an answer by making a series of guesses. So we're seeing all kinds of inaccuracies. And I kind of think of it like, it's kind of like it's got this great wealth of knowledge, but it's also programmed to make stuff up. We want it to write a blog post for us. We want it to make up a story. I've got a friend who got it to write a novel for it. It's got this great capacity to make things up. And so that's a good thing. We can use that, but we also have to be aware of it if we're trying to actually get something factual out of it, that we've got to be very, very mindful and kind of verify a lot of what we're seeing. So, for example, I asked it to write a bio on me. And the first time I asked it to do that, it credited me with writing a book that I have not written. Another time it said I'd been in the content marketing industry for 4 whole years, which was only out by about 20 years. So, it's plausible, but not accurate. And so you want to be looking at all of your results with this kind of filter of how can I verify? How can I road test this? How can I proof or fact check this in a way that's not going to take away all of the benefits of actually using this tool? And we just had someone in our mastermind last week, Suzi, share. She helps piano teachers. And she said when she did this exercise, she asked it for some research. It completely fabricated a report by a true and real industry body. So it seemed really like a real report. It seemed really plausible. And it quoted statistics from this made-up report. And Gillian, who is in our mastermind, said, wow, I've never heard of this report before. And she's thinking, where have I been living under a rock? Because she knows this industry so well. She went and verified it on Google. She went and searching for this report, and it does not exist. So do not take some of these things on face value. It's also just inherently biased because it is drawing on all the data from, human history to this time. Unfortunately, human history has a few biases to this time, so your answer might sound like a straight white man, for example, because a lot of the dialogue in history has been created by straight white men. It might be that it has other biases in there. I know, for example, I asked an AI tool that I was using to create an image of a graphic designer briefing a client, and both of the subjects turned out to be men in that image because it just assumed that, well, yes, of course it would be men. So I had to specify, no, I want it to be women. And so you'll see these little defaults, these little biases all through the results you get. Suzi, what have you found about the biases? Have you kind of noticed anything, or some of this kind of plausible but not really accurate?
Here's what I believe. I believe that when you are using it to find information or work on projects that you know something about, that's where I feel comfortable because I can verify things very, very quickly. A friend of mine created a glossary of terms for the commercial real estate industry, and it was only because he knows the industry very well when it was citing certain facts or certain legislation, he could verify that. It was just a very quick way for him to create it. But if you're asking it, because it really wants to serve you, it's really a wonderful servant. It will respond to the best of its ability. It just wants to give you an answer. But that's where we need to stop being the robot and just saying, okay, great, thank you, and taking that on face value. We need to be investigative. We need to go, really? Are they really the top 5 ways that a stylist can help someone find the best color for them? Like, use your own intelligence and lay that on top. And when it is trying to cite sources, I would be really skeptical, and I would make sure that I'm verifying those. One thing that it did do for me a couple of weeks ago, I was asking a question and the answers were not to my question. So it just had a little spat and it was giving me responses to something I hadn't even asked. So I just sort of refreshed the page and regenerated and off it went again. So it is not perfect, but it is fabulous in so many ways, as we'll talk about today.
Yeah, and I think harnessing those strengths is what we're going to be talking about. And for me, research, it's not as strong as using it to ideate and brainstorm and create. And I think that's really where we're seeing a lot of value right now. And, of course, before we get into some specifics, just to speak at a high level, the real art of leveraging AI is creating a good prompt. And you might have been, this is another buzzword right now, prompts or prompt crafting. And a prompt is what you use when you enter your request into whatever AI tool you're using. So it might be like the example Suzi said, who won the 2023 Australian Open? That's a prompt. And, the better the prompt, the more likely you're going to get what you want. And it's just like all other computer systems. You put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So assembling an effective prompt is, as I said, referred to often as prompt crafting. And this is one of the most important steps in the process. And maybe, Suzi, you can share, just to contextualize this, you can share an example of a prompt that you've used recently.
The quality of our questions matter anytime, in real person, in our marketing, in negotiations, in anything that we do. And it becomes especially important in this prompt crafting. And so what I've gotten is just better at being very deliberate about how I ask things and getting more pointy, if you like, more specific. And so recently I said, hey, because I'm friendly. Hey, I'd like to run a 4-week online challenge for women business owners on how to be more seen and more visible for their expertise in order for them to grow their profile and grow their business. What would be some good topics to cover so that they can reach more people and get new clients? So you can see it wasn't like, hey, give me an idea for a 4-week online challenge. I told the audience, I got more specific about what I wanted, and it went on to give me topics to consider a name for the challenge, and at my request, even some social posts to use to promote the challenge to our community. Now, I had to finesse some of the responses along the way in order for it to be aligned with the way that we teach this topic inside of her business by having it eliminate some things or add some things. But here's the thing, Michelle. Most of the grunt work, 80% of the task, was done for me, and it meant I wasn't starting with a blank page, which goes back to your point about brainstorming, ideation. Getting started is where I think its brilliance is, and it certainly was with that prompt.
Yeah, that blank page can be such a stifling thing to stare at. And so just using it to get going. And, what I'm seeing, and I know I've seen this with some of the work you're doing too, even if you, as you said, you have to finesse it, you take what it gives you and then you tweak it a little bit, you're so much further down the creative process than you would have been without that sort of starting point. And so today we want to share with you a simple framework for creating a great prompt. Now, this is kind of, it's always good to have a framework. It's always good to have a little process that you're following. And I kind of, after doing lots and lots of prompts, here is my recommendation. Firstly, you want to set the task. So what is it you actually want it to do? And Suzi gave a great example there. She said she's getting really pointy. She's getting really specific. So what is it you actually want it to do? And so in Suzi's case there, she wanted some good topics. She really wanted a list of topics that people, that the challenge could be about in the 4-week online challenge. So just get clear on what is the task that I want it to do. And the second thing you want to do is add some context. So Suzi added some context. It's for women business owners. It's a 4-week challenge. I want this. I want that. And so the best advice I find is just to go for gold, is to just set the task, add a bit of context and see what it gives you. I started off, Suzi, kind of writing these giant long prompts. And then I was like, what happens if I wrote a shorter version of that prompt? And I was sort of getting the same answer. So save yourself a little bit of time and just kind of go with the MVP, the minimum viable product version of your prompt is my best advice. So set the task, give it a bit of context, and just see what comes back. So step 1, set task. Step 2, add some context. Step 3 is click the submit button. Just see what it's going to give you. And maybe it's just going to give you gold right out of the gate. I was amazed with that prompt that I shared yesterday with my mum when I was showing her AI. Just actually how little I had to set the task and give context for it to really grasp what I was talking about. But then, of course, what's going to happen is you're going to get a response and it's either going to be close or not quite or really far off the mark. And that's when you want to do step 4, which is to refine and verify. So that is, you want to refine it. You might want to say, well, I actually want it in a numbered bullet list, or I want it, make it just like for women, like the example I said when I did an image. I set the task, create an image of 2 people in a graphic design studio, and one of them is the designer briefing the client. That was setting the task and adding some context, clicking submit. Then what I got back was a visual of 2 men. And so then I had to refine by saying, oh, actually, no, I want them to be women and I want it to look artistic because it was a very corporate kind of environment. So I refined the prompt and it remembers what you said the first time. And like Suzi said, it just wants to please you. So it went, oh, okay, let me go make you another one. And then it made me another one with women in it and the visuals. So set the task is number 1, add the context, submit, see what you get. Then number 4, refine and verify. This is the point where you go, is that true? Does that make sense? Do I need to refine my prompt to be more accurate? Like one prompt that I was creating was to analyze some client data. And I put the client data in. I said, summarize this client data. And the summary included phrases that were not in the original data. So I went back and looked over the original data. I was like, I don't see that phrase in there. So then I realized I need to refine my prompt some more so that I can say only refer to the 40 responses that I've added above. So this refine and verify is kind of a process, and you might need to run that loop a few times, refine and verify, see what you get, refine and verify, submit. But eventually, you'll get something that you can either use or lose, and that's the 5th step. You use what you've been given, or you go, oh, that was a lost cause. It can't really help me with that, and I'm just going to lose it and move on. So they're the 5 steps. Set the task, add some context, submit, see what you get, refine and verify, and then use or lose. And there's a whole sort of other episode we could do on exactly, how all the different ways you can sort of refine and verify. But you can say, be funnier, be more casual, be more formal, make it in dot points, add percentages. There's all sorts of things you can do to start refining that data. But that's kind of a quick overview. If you keep that framework in mind as you're working in prompts, I think it's a good place to start as we get into some specific examples of prompts.
And when we're talking about prompts, like this is where the gold is, this is where the work is. The better we can get at our prompts and in really massaging the responses that we're getting, the better quality work we're going to end up with and the more unique. Because if Michelle puts the same prompt in as I do, it's going to give us pretty much the same information. So if your competitor is asking the same questions you are, and I actually asked ChatGPT, I said, if I ask the same question as the same person, are you going to give the same response? And it said, yes, most likely I will. And so if you're in the business of helping people declutter their homes and you're asking a question and someone asks a very similar question, then you might end up with very similar blog posts. But the more, and I'm going to talk a little more about personality later, but it really comes down to the prompts. The more granular you can get with the prompts, that doesn't mean they have to be super long, as Michelle indicated, but it just means that spend the time here, spend the time on the strategy and the mastery of prompts. That really is, I think, core to getting the right information out. The thing about the prompts is you want to always remember who your ideal client is. Here on the show, we're always talking about ideal clients, and you want to be talking about who you are. And I'll give you some examples in just a moment. And the quality of the prompts definitely matters. And you may not get it right the first time. And you might start off, as Michelle said, you go broad and then you refine. Or it might give you 5 bullet points and 2 of them are off. So you might say, give me 2 more, or give me 2 more that are not like these. Right? And you say you're training it. But the important thing is to verify what it's telling you. So love prompts, love playing with prompts. It can be a real rabbit hole as you kind of get more and more granular. But it's been very, very important. And, in the months that I've been using it, you get better and better. And I was talking with our team who've also started to use ChatGPT specifically and listening to how they're getting better at asking things in different ways as well to get the right report. So the thing that I wanted to talk about, and Michelle indicated, is that we want to give you some examples of some of the ways that we've been using it specifically in our business, and especially around the topic of marketing and content and a few other things. Before I dive into that, Michelle, is there anything you want to say?
I'm just loving the comment here from one of our listeners who's tuning in live, Christy Smith. She says, so cool. I took Suzi's example and just posted this question. Hey, I'm looking to run a webinar. Hey, she took your hey, Suzi. Hey. I'm looking to run a webinar for businesswomen who are overwhelmed and doing all this. What topics could I cover? And Christy says, I got a great framework.
Fantastic. I love it. And you could refine that, Christy, and say who you are, and what your business is and how you help, and just see if it sharpens them up at all. Fantastic. Very, very good. Alrighty, here we go. I'm going to take you through some of the ways that we've been using it. And the first speaks to what Michelle said earlier, and that is just creating content, brainstorming, researching, ideation, creating first drafts. And so some of the very specific ways we have created blog posts, both original content, but also taking past blog posts and say, give me something like this. We've done podcast outlines, just like we did the podcast outline for this show. I've said, I'm doing a podcast on this particular topic. I want it to be a 20-minute outline, 20-minute show. Give me an outline. And it'll say, in the first 5 minutes, do this. In the next 10 minutes, do that. Like very, very broad. But again, these are thought starters. It gets something on the page. I've had it brainstorm social posts. So I've taken copy from somewhere and said, create some social posts out of this. It's helped with newsletter content. It's helped with rewriting content that's a little messy. I might have written something and I'm not super happy with it. So I might put it in there and say, check the grammar, check the spelling, make it sound more conversational, make it Australian English, et cetera, et cetera. But the big value is in those first drafts. And I've said this a couple of times. And so I want to iterate that. Getting started is the main thing, getting you started in creating content, because more we're going to just need to create more and more relevant content for our ideal clients. I really believe that it is a period of time where, as marketers, we want to be creating more and more relevant content for our ideal clients in order to get our message out there. And so here's a prompt that I did earlier this week. I said, pretend you're a marketing coach working with women in small business. Please create a 4-part series where each week the women are given a simple task to complete. The task should take no more than 15 minutes to complete and should help them improve their marketing so they can reach more people and get new clients. So here's what it came back with. It said, sure, here's a 4-part weekly challenge for women in small business to improve their marketing efforts. And then it said, week 1, do this. Week 2, do that. Week 3, do this. Week 4, do that. Every single item was relevant. It fit in with the way that we teach marketing. And it didn't just tell me what to do in each week. It actually outlined the task. So, for instance, for week 1, it said define your ideal client, which, as you know, is something we talk about all the time here on the show, if you're a regular listener. And it said the task, spend 15 minutes creating a detailed description of your ideal client. Consider factors like age, gender, income, location, etc. All the things that we teach inside of our ideal client avatar. Using this description, guide your marketing efforts and tailor your messaging to better resonate with your target market. Perfect. There's the task for week 1. Amazing, right? So then I said, I love this. I'm very interactive with my chat GPT. Can you suggest a name for this challenge? And immediately it spat out a name and it got it in 1. But I said, give me 5 more alternatives. And it gave me 5. And I said, oh, I really like this one. Thank you. And it said, you're welcome, or something like that. It was very, very interactive. And so what did that do? It sped things up. It was just so much faster than me trying to figure out, well, what are 5 titles and which one would I like? And were they all great? No, I could switch out words and change the tense and move this word here and get something that I really wanted. But speed is the name of the game.
I love this. Speed is absolutely the name of the game. And, we did this with this episode. We teased a little earlier that we were going meta with this show. And we did the same thing. We were like, well, let's use AI for the show. Let's demonstrate. Let's walk our talk in this show. And so here is the prompt. So this show is called How AI is Changing the Marketing Game for Small Business Owners. That's the title that we decided on. But let's tell you the backstory. Let's rewind the tape. You are a podcaster. This is the prompt. You are a podcaster who specializes in content marketing. You are making your first AI-related episode. You want to position it as an intro to AI. List 10 possible title ideas for this episode. So you can see there that one of the things when we set the task and provide a bit of context, a great way to provide some context is to give it a role. You are a podcaster. You specialize in content marketing. There's a great piece of context for the AI. It knows what a podcaster is. It knows what content marketing is. It knows now that it's going to give its answers specifically for a podcast specializing in content marketing. You've set a really good frame right there. List 10 possible title ideas for this episode. That is the task. That's what I want. That's the outcome. So you can see I've just done the bare minimum. Now that's steps 1 and 2, right? Set the task, give it a bit of context. Step 3, click submit. See what you get. Very often you get gold. And we did. Straight away we got gold. We got these 10 fantastic responses. I won't read them all, but I'll just give you a little example. One was AI Demystified, an introduction to artificial intelligence for content marketers. I actually loved all of these titles. And I know, Suzi, we both did. We were like, oh, we could use any one of these. The AI Revolution, what you need to know as a content marketer. And then the one that we actually went with was how AI is changing the game for content marketers. And then we tweaked it a little bit ourselves and went, you know what, maybe we'll extend that to say for small business owners, just to kind of throw that net a little wider. But they were all fantastic titles. So that was a really great kind of way just to kind of break open our thinking. Normally we might spend 10 minutes talking about that and, swapping out ideas. And we're just able to fast track that process and get some really great quality ideas, filter it through our own understanding and experience, add our little nuance of special secret sauce in there and keep going. And so the same with the next thing we said was, okay, we've got the headline, we've got the title. Now, all the next prompt said directly under that, because it's remembering the context, Now, please outline the key topics to cover in this episode. It said, certainly, here are some key topics that I would recommend covering in an introductory episode about AI for content marketers. And we got these bullet points, including point 1, define artificial intelligence. Point 2, applications of AI in content marketing. Point 3, advantages and challenges. Are you seeing that maybe that is how we are unfolding this episode? And of course, what you can do is just keep digging deeper and deeper, because what we could have then done is gone, awesome. Can I get 6 bullet points to flesh out what point 1 above means that we can speak to on the show? So, for example, point 1 was define artificial intelligence. Sure, here are 6 bullet points to flesh out the first key topic of defining artificial intelligence. And then it gave us 6 points explaining what AI was. Now, of course, we took that and thought about our audience and reframed it and brought some of our own expertise from other sources. But you can see so much of that grunt work, as Suzi said, has been done for us.
Very, very good. Thank you for your comments and questions. We're going to circle back to those. I wanted to move on, and there's still quite a lot we want to cover, but I want to so I'm going to start to speed up. And we've just been talking about content. I want to now talk about marketing, because we've also both used AI for marketing tasks, Michelle.
Oh, yeah. And you can use it for so many marketing tasks. I think this is another one of its strengths. It can write a marketing plan for you. It can write a strategy for you, or it can help you think through a strategy. It can help you come up with tactics. Like, you might be thinking, I need 3 ways to find more women who need to hire a virtual assistant. What might be some of those ideas? And you can ask it really high level strategic things. You might ask it to create SEO related copy for you so that you can maximize the SEO nature of every one of your blog posts. You might be able to go through and say, hey, just give me a whole bunch of keywords here. Or you can get it to write ads for you. I saw a great ad the other day that said, this ad was written by a robot and it's working. So a lot of my clients are just using AI to just write many ad varieties so they can start really rapidly split testing and getting to the winner faster. You can get it to create images and video. You could also develop a chatbot for your website that's using AI and really getting conversational with your audience. You can use it to create an online tool or some sort of interactive calendar or calculator. You can get it to improve the code of your web page to make it prettier or to load faster. There are so many ways that you can use AI for your marketing.
I asked it the other day to create a simple marketing plan, and I said specifically a simple marketing plan, and I gave it the context of the project, and it said certainly. It likes to say certainly. It then went on to list things like, for this project, you should create a landing page, you should email your existing email list, you could set up a strategic alliance, and off it went. Now, do I, as a marketer of a million years, know these things? Yes, but it doesn't matter. It's doing the thinking for me. It's making sure, like, if anything I was going to forget, it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. We need to do that. That can then be mapped across to our project. The next area I want to talk about is productivity, because you've already heard how the efficiency, the speed is a great benefit of using AI, specifically some of the AI tools we're talking about today that relate to your marketing. And one of my favorite things has been this: just getting more productive, doing more with less. We're currently working on a new online hub for all our Her Business Network members, and that is going to contain all the masterclasses and trainings and downloads and even access to our podcast really easily in there. And so we wanted to do some research to find out, as we're building this new tool for our members, what are some of the suggestions that they have. So we ask questions like, how do you use the current hub? How often do you go in there? How many hours a month do you spend in there? What would you miss if it wasn't carried across to the new hub? Plus some other things like the size of your business, how you think about your business, how we can improve the experience. And all that information ended up in a spreadsheet. And so we've been using ChatGPT to analyze the answers. Now, these are lines and lines and lines of content that would take us a long time to kind of work through. But we wanted to know a few things. And so one of the things I said was, based on the survey results in this column, in this data set, what is the most common answer to this question? And it spat out the question before I could even finish hitting the button. So what does that do? That speeds up our response. I can then go to the team and go, we were building this. let's just tweak this because this is what the data's saying. We don't need to do that much work. We can just make it this. And so just productivity, and I'll give you some other examples of productivity, but I know one of the ways that you've used it, similar to what I just talked about, Michelle, is with analysing customer data.
Oh my gosh, yes, we've been doing a ton with this. And it is, like you said, it's all there. Whereas, I used to spend hours poring over this customer research and kind of dividing it up into themes and looking for patterns. And while I don't think that work is completely gone, because there is a certain benefit to going deep into your customer's language, and I don't recommend you just kind of get the high-level version and run with it. I do think there's something in reading and soaking in the words of your customers. Gee, it's great just to get that quick summary.
Yes.
But what I will say is this is where you need to verify and refine your prompt, because, Suzi just put it so well at the beginning. It just wants to serve you, so it's going to give you an answer, even if it's not the right answer. And so what I'm finding is I've got to be really specific about the prompt. So if I've taken 40 lines from a spreadsheet where people have given me, 40 different people have given me an answer, I need to sort of put those answers in, and I say, you're a market researcher. You're going to analyze these 40 responses. You are only going to look at this customer language here. You are not going to look at other customer language elsewhere. And you're going to use the raw customer language in your summary and your answer. Please summarize this now into the top 5 themes, and please give me a percentage of each theme in terms of how often it occurs in the data set. And also please give me an example of that customer language for each theme. So you can really verify, okay, it's saying women are feeling tired and overwhelmed, and that's 30% of all of the responses. And then it's giving you an example of one of the responses. So you can verify, it understands, yes, that phrase I would group into a category called tired and overwhelmed. And now let me see if that phrase is in my data set. Because plausible, but not always accurate, remember that. Yes, I see it in the data set. Yes, I see that would be relevant to that theme. Okay, I'm feeling fairly good about this data.
So good. So good. On this topic of productivity, repurposing, of course, is one of the main ways that we've been using it. And so you can take the transcript from this podcast and turn it into 3 blog posts. You can take that blog post and add add, what do they call them? Subheadings and pull quotes. You can take that and create 3 social posts that promote that podcast or that blog post or that landing page. You can then take the social post and say, add emoji and hashtags. Right? And it'll do all that for you. And that is just time that you don't have to spend doing those things. What you're spending your time on is finessing. And Michelle mentioned split testing earlier. Really great for split testing. And if you've ever written Facebook ads, you know that, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And so inevitably we would end up with maybe a half dozen different variations of ads. Now we can use AI to say, give me 3 more versions of this. And it's changing it up and it's changing the focus. So give me another version of this focusing on this topic. And so now you can go out and you can test things really, really quickly and see, well, does this copy work better than this copy? If this copy is in a positive tone and this is in a negative tone, which one works better? It's not going to always be the positive tone, right? Because with Facebook or any sort of paid traffic, you're always just wanting to test really quickly and then do away with anything that's not working and then pump up the volume on the things that are working. So, and lots of, but you can split test, give me 3, you might split test your landing page. And so you've got 2 landing pages and you're going to split test the headline. So it's going to give you those headlines and you can run the split test and then retire the page that's not working. So I just wanted to add that.
It's so good for split testing. And like you said, speed is key when split testing. And tools like Facebook are so set up for you to put lots of ad variations in. But often the bottleneck is us, right? We just can't come up with the number of ad variations that we need to make full use of an algorithm like Facebook, which can put out a whole bunch of ads, quickly tell you which one's working, turn the other ones off. So finding really good use there. The other thing about split testing that I like using AI for is that the AI is going to give you language you might not have necessarily used. Like I might not have ever thought to use changing the marketing game to explain this episode, but it had it in its memory banks and it was able to presence that word or that phrase that we might not have used before. And we can get boxed in with our thinking. And I think AI helps you to step out of those boxes as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Customer service. Our team is loving the customer service applications, and we're using it in a couple of different ways. So you might get a question that you want a particular outcome. So maybe there's a customer and they have a query and they're looking for a refund, or they're looking to get their problem fixed. In the essence of speed, again, you can say you're a customer service agent. Please respond to this question with the outcome being that will start their payments later, or that will refund their money, or that they'll get a 50% refund, or letting them know that the delivery of their whatever it is they bought will start then. Spits it out really, really quickly. Now, we don't want to sound like robots, and so the customer service team is then going in and finessing and adding their own personality, their own language, and making it more human, but they're not starting with a blank page. And when you're processing a lot of those, especially say when you're launching or you during a promotion, you're just getting a lot of customer queries, this is really going to save you time. It can also be used in, say you have a Facebook group and you have people introduce themselves inside the Facebook group, and you want to respond in a thoughtful way that says something more than, hey, great to have you in the group, we look forward to getting to know you. You can now say to AI, go ahead and reply to this introduction with the outcome being that the person feels welcomed and connected. And it'll take that copy and it'll spin it. I always imagine it's like it puts everything in this big drum and it spins it around and then it spins it back out in a different order. And so, again, for efficiency with customer service. But, again, you want to make sure that you're verifying that those responses are actually how you would handle that customer service query. But this is about processing really quickly. And the final area I want to talk about is learning and using it for learning. And so this is why a lot of students would be using it, but I asked it recently, could you give me a summary of the key points of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth? It's one of my favourite books. I've read it twice, but I just needed a summary for something I was working on. But just say I hadn't read the book. I could say, look, Suzi keeps talking about this book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Can you just give me the executive summary? And it did. Now, how would you verify it? If you hadn't read the book, you wouldn't, but it's a way to get some learning. You might have it look at a body of research and give you the top takeaways. Again, it doesn't really fit in with the verify step, so I don't know if you've got any comments on that, Michelle.
I think it's if you know that you've got unverified data, that just having that knowledge is useful, right? Like It's like if you take data and you think this is truth, now you're running around kind of a bit exposed, a bit vulnerable to the idea. So if you go, look, I don't know if this is the full summary of her book, but I've got a few good ideas from this, then you can use it as a starting point. You might go and do a little bit more research on the internet to see what other summaries are out there and just kind of have a quick look and say, oh yeah, look, there's the summary. Or you can get the free chapter summaries, that you can see the chapters on Kindle and things like that. They'll just show you the first few pages. You might just go, oh yeah, it's on the right planet. Like if it's told you that she's talking about analysing soil samples on Mars, for example, and you go and verify that the book is about actually how she studied, what makes people really persevere and prevail in certain situations, then major disconnect here. So, but I do think the main thing is just knowing that you've got unverified data. You can take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and just, you wouldn't bank your whole house on it or your whole, essay on it or presentation for your TED talk or something on it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think the main thing that I want to say, because having used it for a while now, is that it does have these biases that Michelle mentioned, and it does have a certain tone. It tends to come back with a pretty professional, direct kind of tone. And even if you do then say, please make it more colloquial or whatever, ultimately it's a robot. Ultimately, it's artificial intelligence. And so it's really important to start to inject your personality. So it may be grammatically correct. It could be really informative content. But let's be honest, it will usually lack the human touch and it'll lack your touch. And that's why it's more important than ever for content marketers to inject their personality into their content. And I know this isn't always easy. So a friend of mine says, let your freak flag fly. And you definitely want to do that. You want to be using the usual terminology that you use, any sort of little quirky things that you say, the tone, the values that are very much you want to be using those. And you can do that at the very end, at sort of the final edit stage, to make sure that it still feels and sounds like you. If you've seen any of the imagery that it's creating, you can see it's not quite there. It's a little harder to see that in text, but it's still not quite there. With images, you can see, people are coming out and, they've got 3 legs and, 7 fingers on one hand, right? Because it hasn't got it quite right. Really, look closely. But with text, it's not as obvious that there are these imperfections. And so whatever your unique voice is, your perspective, your values, you want to let them shine through, which always makes for more engaged, authentic content. And I think the people who are going to win with this game of what content marketing is now are the ones who are strategic about it and who really lean in on personality, authenticity, using it the way that we've discussed today to leverage your time and energy and resources, but to not replace thoughtful, considerate expression of who you are and your products and services.
I 100% agree with you. I heard a great quote the other day from someone, and they said, because a lot of people out there are thinking, AI is going to take my job. If you have if you help people with copywriting, for example, or other services, and you might think, where's the room for me? There is room for you, but you need to get AI working for you. You need to find out how to leverage AI to actually add value to your clients. And so they were saying AI will not take your job, but the person who knows how to use AI to do your job will take your job. So it's like, this is a necessary thing to be across and to understand. And I think what you were saying there about tone of voice and bringing your personality in, I 1,000,000,000% agree with you on that when it comes to the content and the information we're sharing on the front end of our marketing. And so we're going to do a future episode just on this idea of your tone of voice and really ways you can understand your own tone of voice a bit more so that the prompts you're putting into AI are actually specific and concrete. Because, we can say, make it funnier, or make it more casual, but there are a lot more kind of levers that you can pull in terms of how you describe your own tone of voice, how you think about your own cadence. Do you write for a grade 12 or a grade 5 level? Do you write in long sentences? Do you write in short sentences? Do you use a lot of adjectives and adverbs? Understanding a lot of that can actually be very specific kind of programming that you can give to your prompts. You can really add a real depth to that. And we'll be covering that in a future episode. We're teasing you a little bit there, but just know that your tone of voice is really important and that the personality needs to shine through. And the role can really help. I saw someone the other day do a demonstration of this, and they were kind of getting it to write about a submarine, and the content was pretty dry, and then they just changed the context a bit and said, "You are a submarine. Now explain the submarine." And it was really, really interesting content, right? And I think that's a great example of how you can get at different angles that not everybody else is sprouting from their own basic AI kind of prompts with these better, more thoughtful prompts.
Very, very good. We have a couple of questions that we want to answer here, and a couple of comments that I wanted to shout out. This is the lovely Felicity Brown. She's a milliner, and she helps women in rural and regional Australia find hats for special occasions, and these are usually women who don't have access to retail stores. And she says, I haven't used AI yet, but super excited to start. I had no idea where to start, so thank you. You're very welcome. And this person here, I can't see the name, but has said, I've been trying different questions and can see how awesome it is to bring your thoughts together and make things so much easier with flow. And the lovely Anne-Marie Wilshire of Vibrant Voices, who is one of our marketing success masterminders, has said, thanks, Suzi and Michelle. Your prompt suggestions make it so much fun to work with ChatGPT and mash up the language I use into different and fresh ways. Yes, and that your distinct voice elevated or enhanced as far as using your unique voice, Anne-Marie, to now just create so much more content, so much easier, taking the pressure off. Great info, ladies. What's the impact in relation to copyright? Let's go ahead and answer this one. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if you have an answer for that, Michelle.
It depends. So, like, for example, if you're using a tool like Midjourney, you'll actually, when you go in, which is a tool for generating images, it'll actually say that you've got some general kind of copyright to use what's on what's generated. But here's the problem. You may be unintentionally infringing copyright. So I saw somewhere the other day that somebody had put a prompt in to generate an image of a woman with grey hair doing something, and it actually went and regenerated a copyrighted image, an image that was owned by a photographer, a real image. Now, most of the time it's creating an amalgam of imagery that's not really attributable to any one source. But it's, again, this process of refine and verify. And so I'm watching this very carefully. In general, in Midjourney, which is the image generation tool I've been using a lot, the images are all, never been seen before except from the prompt that I have created. But there is always the random risk that it's going to randomly create something that is a copyrighted image. But I think that's really the exception to rather than the rule. In terms of text, you are able to use the content, but again, verify. Like the example from Gillian from our mastermind group, quoting an actual report issued by an association. That association did not create that report. So you don't want to go out and quote that association with some fabricated information in the report. So that verification piece is really going to be key. But if it's written like 4 ideas for your challenge, go ahead and use them. There's no copyright issue there.
Thank you. Now, there's a question that was asked earlier, and it's actually had a couple of responses, but I will let me make sure there's nothing else here. I'll pop it up here on the screen, but I'll also read it out for those of you at home. The question was from Sue, and Sue said, how do you think authentic and original creators will be able to prove their work is not created by AI? And Sally's piped in and said, Sue Elson, by showing their unique style, creative process, and personal inspiration behind their creations, imperfections and variations in their work can also be a sign of human creativity. And Sue goes on to say, Sally Curtis, thanks, Sally, for stepping in. I have a range of existing content, which I hope stands me in good stead, and I have found that the predictive text has a tendency to change my voice like an editor I don't like would. So I'm going to keep experimenting, but I still have a 1 foot in the critical analysis camp. Thoughts, Michelle?
Well, Sue may be very interested in our future episode on how to get granular about your existing voice. So you end up with an editor that you do like, who's actually making your voice stronger rather than kind of damping down your voice. And I would also say that there are ways. ChatGPT, for example, a lot of these tools are actually introducing like little watermark kind of technology in there, so you can actually tell if it's been created by AI or not. But I personally feel that's kind of an irrelevant question because it's about how you use the AI. Your creativity, you're still going to bring to your prompt, and you're still going to bring your creativity to how you finesse that and how you use that and how you deliver that. And so I think the fears about, people will think that AI wrote this, or isn't this cheating, or, where's my skill set in this? We've just got to find the edge of where the skill set is now. And the edge is about how well you craft the prompt, about how well you present that, about how well you sequence that information. There's so much more than just the actual words you say in content marketing and in our businesses in general. And that's where we need to find our unique strengths and our unique positioning and understanding that ideal client. Everything we've ever said in Content Sells Podcast is still true. Understand the language of your audience, know what they need when they need it, build a funnel, have a clear offer. All those things do not go away just because AI is here.
So that is our introductory episode. We want to give you some next steps. If you are already playing with AI, hopefully you've got some good ideas to specifically work on prompts and some other things here. If you're brand new, like Flick, to AI, I hope this is an encouragement to go ahead and just get in there and just try it out. As we said, it's a robot. It is not human, but it's a great place to start to think about your marketing, because AI has changed the game of marketing for small business owners, and you want to be sort of on top of all that. Michelle, we're going to tell everyone what's coming up in the next episode. But firstly, we've created a wonderful giveaway for everyone who is listening. And this is the AI tools that we recommend for content marketers. And so this is a free download. I'm going to give you a link to that in a moment. You don't need to use them all, but there are so many. And Michelle's actually hand-selected a bunch of them. They will be in this download and you can grab it in just a minute. But before we do that, there's a couple of things that I want to say. Firstly, I want to thank you here for joining us. For those who've joined us live, thank you for being here live. It's not often that we do a live show. This is actually only our second in 207 episodes. We so appreciate you being here. We appreciate if you enjoyed today's episode to head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a great rating or review. We have over 100 5-star reviews now. One of our recent reviews was from the Renault Queen, and she said this. She said, super legends. This was when we reached our 200th episode. She said, hooray on such an awesome effort, Suzi, Dafnis and Michelle Falzon. 200 and still going strong. Where have I been all these episodes? I just joined your podcast and her business community at episode 194, and I'm so grateful I found you both. Thank you. The content you share is gold. My favorite is episode 199. I don't even remember what that one was. I'll have to go back and
look
check.
that up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next 200. So thank you, the Renault Queen from Australia. Now, as I mentioned, we've mentioned a few different resources. We've mentioned a few different programs here on the show. We're going to put all those details over on our show notes page, as well as the link to get your AI tools for content creators free download. And you'll find that over at herbusiness.com/AI marketing, all one word. So that's herbusiness.com/AI marketing. That's today's episode. Michelle, what do we have coming up in episode 208?
Well, just before we do that, I want to say episode 199 was creating a runway, how to pave the way for the sale and get more results for less cost. It is a good episode. Do check that one out. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the money part of marketing. We're going to be looking at mindset, pricing, and investing for business growth. How much money should you be spending on your marketing? How do you manage your mindset around spending on ads and all of those sorts of things? And we're going to be bringing in not one, not two, but multiple guests. This is our first time we've done this in this format. We're super excited, and that's all coming up in the next episode, the money part of marketing.
So if you haven't subscribed to the show yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google Play or Audible or all the places, so that you get that episode when that comes out. It's a really, really good one. Our guests are amazing. That's what we have for you today, Michelle. Anything you'd like to say before we go?
Get the download, grab a tool, get started. That is the best thing you can do. If my mum can do it, you can do it. Get in and give it a try.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Julia Watts, thank you so much for your message. Love this session, she says. Thank you, ladies. Very interesting ideas. So helpful. Very, very good. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sales Podcast. Bye for now.